Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Season 1, Episode 7 of The Lincoln Lawyer. Great episode, a lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So first and foremost, we are in the actual trial this time. Obviously, we learned a lot of interesting things. Well, first and foremost, Mickey's obviously dealing with the aftermath of the information he found out from Trevor last episode about Sergey, the guy that's like at the heart of all of this, that he's a very, very bad dude that most likely had Laura killed and Jan killed, and the fact is they can't screw up the trial because if they lose, everyone's dead, Trevor's dead, Mickey's dead, everyone he cares about. That will probably include Lorna, Cisco, as well as Maggie and Haley, but so he's trying to deal with that. He's getting Cisco to investigate juror number 7 because he knows juror number 7 is the one that was paid off. So I was like, find out anything about this guy. So he's keeping Cisco in the dark because, right, the less you know, the better off you are. So he's also in a situation where now we found out too, Izzy had no idea about the car being bugged. I was like, that's fascinating. It's like, right, I guess she doesn't have to act. If she is still in the dark about everything, you just probably like make sure the conversations lend themselves more to where you need them to go. But yeah, you keep Izzy in the dark because her reactions are genuine. So, but it's also I think it's that thing of playing your cards close to your vest, and also just, yeah, the less you know, the less you get dragged into this. You know, once again, I think it adds a layer of authenticity to like all her statements, so it doesn't seem like she's acting because she knows that she's being recorded. But nevertheless, once again, first day of court. I love the whole thing of like Mickey makes a point that like he tries not to let his opening statement be too long. He hits him with the quick jabs. The fact is that he tries to put on like that Mickey Holler charm, because Golant's kind of like he threw a lot of information at everyone, and it's like, right, you don't want to overstay your welcome because then they're going to start tuning you out after a while. So it's like, cool, you said all that. Mickey came in with the blows. The guy said gun 6 times. They have never actually found the murder weapon. They haven't even tied it to my client because my client's never used one and never owned one. So yeah, obviously we know there's the gun residue that's on him, but obviously we're not talking about that. But and I love that we circle back to like the main defense, tunnel vision. Everyone was so focused on my client, they didn't look at anyone else. So everyone got tunnel vision on this case, and he's like, that's what I'm going to start dismantling the prosecution's narrative and everything. So they get that deputy up first and foremost, and he's painting it like, oh my god, Trevor was an emotionless robot, just pointing out, oh yeah, that's my wife Laura, and I'm pretty sure she's dead. He was so unemotional. I was like, oh, pointing at the body, which I find interesting because when you add in what Mickey points out later on, it's like, oh, it's interesting you say that, because he tried to be like, oh, trying to say that Trevor was said 3 times without being prompted, I didn't kill my wife, I didn't do this, I didn't kill anyone. It's like, oh, that seems suspicious. You immediately throw that out there when no one's suspecting you. To be fair, everyone knows the husband's the go-to. I think people even make a joke, it's like, oh, if it's David E. Kelly something, it's related to like a husband killing a wife. Like, I think people make those jokes about just like some of the stuff he makes. Regardless. I mean, it's your typical crime story, murder mystery story of that is usually like a husband murdering a wife. Once again, even prior to this, the most recent example would be Undone on HBO. But regardless. But then Mickey pointed out that, oh, like, look at the condition my client is in, Trevor. He was handcuffed. Like, was he under arrest? No. But you handcuffed him. It's like, yeah, we typically do that to sus. And it's like, oh, you almost slipped up. And he's like, subjects who are connected to an investigation, which I'm like, you never see that. Usually it's suspects that get arrested. Rarely is it a thing like, I'm like, oh, you're trying to spin that, but I guess it's like, right, we didn't know what was up. You're a subject that's involved in this, but it's like, right, if he was a subject and you didn't want him to hurt anyone or whatever, it's like, why would you handcuff his hands behind his back instead of in front of his back? because behind the back kind of sets a certain narrative of like, oh, you're arresting me without arresting me. But he was like, no, we made it clear every time that your client was not arrested. It's like, was that actually clear? And even if it was, it still kind of implied like, we think you did this, so you look super suspicious. Even being like, your partner had a gun on him the entire time. It's like, oh, so what did he do? It's like, right, did your partner have the gun out the entire time he was running you through the crime scene? It's like, yes. Oh, and you wonder why he was kind of like saying over and over again, I didn't do this. It's like, oh, little sneaky stuff here and there about like, oh, I love how you omitted some elements to that. And even the fact is like, oh, we put him in the back seat. It's like, oh, could he have gotten out? It's like, no, because there's a security locks on police car. You can only open those from the outside. You can't open those from the inside. So it's like, he couldn't have just got out and left. So it's like, kind of painting that narrative of like, you kind of already had your guy. And it's like, right, you were saying my client, his emotional experience based on your experience. How long have you been on the job? 7 months. Oh, you're not even past your probational period. No, it's like, cool. I see how that is. That's interesting. So, kind of shows that they kind of already like had it. So they're like, oh, Trevor did this. They were already treating him like us. I'll keep you. And even Mickey says, you keep using the word subject. There's that word again. It's like, go ahead and say what you really meant. Because you almost slipped up and said it yourself. You said you were going to say suspect. So I thought that was interesting. Once again, I could definitely get behind, like, I love the courtroom drama stuff, element of it. I haven't actually watched too many, like, straight up just courtroom shows. I mean, I've watched, like, obviously, you have Law and Order, which 90% of that show is both the police investigation and the courtroom stuff. I think there's still some episodes that never go to the courtroom stuff, but I feel like that's, like, very few and in between. I can't really think of any off the top of my head. I feel like there are some that I know are like that, but tangents and all that aside. Then they were also painting the narrative about what he was doing at one point in time, because Trevor's like looking on his phone and it's like, oh, what was he doing? It's like, well, we don't know, but he's like, it's almost like he's checking his email, which you can make the argument. I think it's like, right, we don't know if he was looking to see if there was a murderer in the area, but also like, it could be a dissociative thing of like, oh my God, this is happening, so like I'm gonna distract myself, because like people are built differently. That would be my defense for that. I mean, but even that's not the best defense. The best you could do is like, you have no idea what he was looking up. I'm assuming he was playing a game, which would be so much worse if it gets found out that he was, but I'm assuming that. I think it's just him dissociative, because to be fair, who is the lead character of the game they're working on? I think, they're still working on is Laura. She's the model for it. So you can make the argument like he was looking at that game because like, oh my God, my wife, like this is me being able to see her alive. Like it's his way to process everything. If I think you could shift that over to be like, okay, this wasn't my client being like so detached. It was him actually like feeling his feelings and, it's like missing his wife. Once again, it's because, he didn't show the feelings that cop who's only been, cop for like 7 months. It's like, yeah, like, are you a trained psychologist? Like how can you tell someone how someone would react in his circumstances, like, oh, he didn't cry or anything. Well, how many tears are enough? Is one tear enough? So then we also got the main detective, who is the actor, was it Kareem? Is it Hardison? I'm butchering, but it's like you see the actor in so many different things. I want to say like I think the thing he's maybe best known for is like that old school sitcom 80s. What's it, an 80s sitcom? I believe so. Different Worlds. I feel like there was something more recent I also have seen. Because he's one of those actors, you see him so many things, but I want to say that that's probably the thing, like, I always think back, because I watched my sister, like, watch reruns of it a couple years back, but nevertheless. So, but obviously comes up the conversation, too, of what that detective experienced and stuff like that, but then Mickey does this thing of, like, okay, did you look at anyone else? Did you know that Jan was, having private lessons with some of his so did they look at any other potential suspects, like anyone that might have wanted Jan dead? Because the entire point was like, oh, it was Lisa. Lisa was the target. It's like, well, yeah, but did you ever look to see if Jan might have been the target? It's like, no, we didn't. So now that's, once again, it's throwing out that reasonable doubt to be like, okay, you once again shifting the investigation and conversation to be like, oh, once again, the cops having tunnel vision is like Mickey's main defense, and throwing it out there like, oh, they're Laura might not have been the main subject, it might have been Jan, and there are plenty other people with motive, even throwing out Anton like, oh, that guy's violent, and apparently there was a thing going on between his wife and Jan. So You even had Carol show up in the back, well, because she's showing up at the courtroom, because immediately Lorna notices her, and then she's chastising Lorna. It's like, oh, you lawyers are all the same. You're representing a monster. I can't wait for him to go down. He hurt a friend of mine. I'm like, once again, as Lorna said, there's something there. There is something more there, that woman is probably holding on to some crucial evidence, because there's probably something there that probably could help in the long run, but she's probably holding on to it because it could probably help Trevor, and she doesn't want to help Trevor because she still believes him to be responsible for what happened to Jan. But I still think there's something more to, like, yeah, there was probably a lover's thing going on, and you were upset because he was dating other women. It seemed like it bothered you, because it's like, I think for him, it was just a very casual thing of like a hookup and stuff. For her, she was probably in love, so that's probably a whole thing in itself. But Lorna had to correct her, be like, I'm not a lawyer, which I was like, I was like, that has happened yet again, where that lawyer conversations come up and Lorna's gotten a little awkward about it. Because this episode kind of dives into it a little bit more, because later on she decides that she's going to go back to being a lawyer after talking to Haley. We'll get to that later, but was it the last episode or episode before last, she ran into someone from class, like, oh yeah, why'd you just disappear? She's like, she just kind of like shifted the conversation and bounced. So what went on? What made her decide? Maybe it's like a personal thing, like a love life situation, a family situation, that maybe something came up in whatever. I think something must have come up in her personal life, because I was thinking, like, could it be something related to Mickey? But I was like, no, her and Mickey probably had already split way before then. Maybe, I don't know. But that's going to be an interesting thing to see. Well, since we're still on the Lorna subject, I love that. I forgot to talk about it last episode, but the awkwardness between her and Maggie at that event last episode, where she was just like, oh yeah, I could hang out with Haley, and just, you could tell Maggie's a little weird about it, because it's like, right, ex-wife 1 and ex-wife 2, maybe she never really was too, like, it's like, right, you're not with Mickey anymore, so you being with Mickey, yeah, that makes you like another person in Haley's life, but now, like, you guys are divorced, it feels a little weird. I think that's what that's about, maybe. I wonder, is it, I don't think so, but I'm wondering some other, like, you don't think Maggie, like, worries that, like, Lorna didn't do her part in trying to keep Mickey off? Like, I hope it's not some subtle, like, digging. I think it's just that awkward thing of like, oh yeah, you want to hang around my daughter? It's like, well yeah, she was my stepdaughter. It's like, yeah, but you're not married. But it's like, yeah, that connection doesn't go away. Because at first I was thinking, like, oh, Haley's going to be really, like, snippy with Lorna, but it's like, no, it seemed like her and Lorna have a really good relationship, even post her and Mickey getting divorced. It seems like, because Haley's like, man, you make a lot more sense to both of my parents. Because it's like, right, oh, you think my mom's a hero? It's like, yeah, because Haley got into it with someone at the soccer game, because this girl, Misha, is like, oh, and now Marsha apologized. Misha, I don't care. Yeah, sure, whatever, I don't care. Apologize too. So apparently Misha, along with other people at the school, are running their mouths off about how basically Mickey's kind of like a representation of the patriarchy because he's protecting a man who murdered his wife. But also Lorna saying, like, right, everyone's automatically assumed he's guilty. Yes, because he's a rich, douchebag to most people's eyes. So that's all they see. They've already clarified in their head that he's guilty. And like, your dad will wade through 1,000 guilty people just to find that one innocent person, which we know who that is for him. It's Jesus. So he's going to still give Trevor the best defense possible, just like his father would. As we've shown in the past, and we got in the last episode where his dad talked about some of that stuff, but still not 100% sure where Mickey lands on it. Because Mickey has made it clear on some occasions. He's like, no, I feel like you didn't do this, that you are innocent. But obviously, Trevor's done some like shady shit. You're like, it does not help your case. Just the way you've handled certain things. So, but circling back to it, the whole conversation between Lorna and Haley. When they were at the football game, the coach was like, wait, who? Or the referee, she's like, who are you? Oh, I'm Haley's ex-stepmother. That's who I am. And just kind of walks off all badass. Very like, almost David Caruso, CSI Miami, putting the shades back on and everything. So that was it. I thought that was interesting. But hearing Lorna talk about that, it's like, oh, why aren't you a lawyer? And she's like, oh, no. And she's like, right, you should be a lawyer. You make more sense to both my parents. And now Lorna decides and even talks to Cisco about it. It's like, I'm going to go back to school. And he's like, that's great. That's awesome. Are you going to break that news to Mickey? And she's like, yeah, because she's basically saying that there's so many people out there. Because everyone gets it in their narrative, in their mind about people, but everyone is their own world. Everyone, basically, like, you don't know a person's situation. You might, because, once again, Trevor's being lumped into this category because he's white, rich, privileged douchebag, right? So that's why he's kind of getting lumped into that. But everyone's their own world. Everyone's got their own situation, their own circumstances that you can't just, it's not clear cut, so that was kind of her point. And the fact that she's reluctant to tell Mickey, I'm wondering what that's about. I wonder, is it because it's like, right, I won't be here to help you out and stuff like that? Or is it because, I don't know if she'd go down the defense attorney route. She might actually go down the prosecutor route, and it might be a situation. I don't know. I don't know if she talked about which side of the law she'd be on, lawyer-wise, prosecutor, defender, defense attorney, like, where'd she go with that? Maybe she's worried that, like, if she tells Mickey this, how he react, and now it ended up potentially putting her as, like, an adversary, like, where him and Jerry were until Jerry shifted over to be a defense attorney. I don't know. I'll be curious to see, like, because she had some hesitancy where she was like, it was like a 3-second pause, and she's like, yeah, but it seemed like she was reluctant to be like, yeah, I'll talk to Mickey about it. So we'll see. Also, speaking of Trevor, he was kind of feeling himself at one point in time when Mickey was doing his thing. He was leaning in, he's like, excellent job. And was like, I don't need you to congratulate me on me doing my job. But he was also kind of slimy with it. Like, oh, like, that kind of swings things like in our face. Like, I forgot his exact wording, but he said it in kind of almost a slimy way. Mickey's almost like, shut up, dude. Let me just do my job. Like, I don't need you to be my, like, biggest supporter. I'm here to help you. Remember, you're the one on murder trial, not me. Especially knowing, like, no, you have no leg to stand on, considering everything that you've dragged me into as well. Like, all this terrible stuff that you're mixed up in that potentially got your wife and her lover killed and could potentially get me and my family killed. So shut up. Let me do this because I'm doing an excellent job, because everyone's lives depends on it. So I love the discovery where it's like, okay, so Cisco was digging through home dude's trash can, juror number 7. They find out he isn't who claims to be. He's actually a felon, or he's been arrested before, and he's pretending to be someone else. But by the time this gets found out, he's on the run. Like, he disappeared and never showed up for jury duty. And now, because Mickey went to go see Teddy and Cisco's old gang, and he was asking for a favor. I thought this was it. It could have been a combination of this and the end. What we got is, okay, so he asked Teddy and his guys to keep an eye on Maggie and Haley in case things go sideways, because he probably wasn't 100% sure how things were going to play out when juror number 7 was revealed, because it would immediately lead to a mistrial. But they can't have a mistrial, because even Cisco was like, right, do you think that's why Jerry got bumped? Because he was asking for a continuance, and the moment a continuance would have gotten added into the fold, they would have gotten a whole new jury pool, which that insider was not part of that jury pool, so that would screw things up. So it's like, is that why they killed Jerry? Because he wouldn't go along with everything, But Mickey found a roundabout way to kind of get rid of this. He's like, I didn't do it. I didn't reveal this information, so it'll never fall back on him. It will seem like someone else ratted him out. But even Trevor's still like, you did this, didn't you? He's like, trust me, I didn't. And Mickey was able to protect himself in the courtroom by being like, well, when he's talking to the judge, he's like, no, like, the longer this goes on, this actually hurts us in the long run. I don't need a mistrial, because the longer this goes on, the more, like, word spreads about my client in the public view and public eye. So, like, we need things to kind of continue. So they're going to continue looking into all the other jurors to find out, for one, are they able to continue without there being any issue, and if they are who they claim to be, and it can keep the trial going. So, but I love that Mickey's like, when he's talking to Trevor's like, no, we can win this fair and square, and he's almost like, wait, you didn't actually think we'd win this. That's why Trevor was so like, yeah, we got this. Like, I believe in you, and believe in you as my lawyer. I believe in me. It's like, no, he was bullshitting, because he always knew there was going to be an insider to sway things their way. Like, he trusted, like, okay, Mickey will give us part of the way. Juror number, whatever jurors on the take is going to get us all the way past the field goal. Like, give us the field goal. So take us to the home stretch. So that's what he was thinking. That's why he was so confident. And now he's like, we're fucked. We're screwed. And Mickey's like, it's fine. And he's walking away. And then, like, I think maybe he's thinking to himself, maybe we're not that fine. But it's like, I don't care. Once again, extra motivation. Like, I'm glad I got people to look after Maggie and Haley anyway, just to make sure they're okay. Just in case things go wild. Because turns out Sergey is a very interesting dude. On the surface, seems like legit, but then it's like, yo, he's got his hands in so many pockets. Putin's this and that. So it's like, guys, really, really bad news. Not the type of guy that's going to settle for a mistrial or anything like that. It's like they need to win this so that the acquisition can go through and they can get what they need in the end. So then there's the whole Soto situation, which I kept being like, why does that actor who plays Soto look so familiar? And getting a little bit of a longer look at him, I was like, is that who I think it is? And I think I saw his name at the end in the credits, Reggie Lee. I believe that's the actor. I think I know him from Grimm. I'm blanking on his name now. Yep, I just looked it up. Wu is who he played in Grimm. I kept being like, why does this actor look so familiar to me? I think it was kind of throwing for me because, like, I think as Wu, if I remember correctly, he had a little bit of facial hair. He had like a mustache, and not with that. I know it's not much, but even without the mustache, he almost looks so different. Plus, it's been a couple years since Grimm ended. Grimm ended back in like 2017, so it's been like 5 years. So maybe that's also another angle to that. Didn't he pop up in Blind Spot at one point in time? I'm trying to think off the top of my head. He might have popped up in a small part in Blind Spot. Maybe he's even more recently on my mind because of that. Regardless, we're covering a little bit more with the Soto situation as obviously the dealings have kind of gone through. Mickey got what he wanted for. Oh God, what's Soto's girlfriend? I'm blanking on her name now. So she ended up going to her doctor's appointment. Obviously, Soto decided to come along, and Maggie was there waiting. And so, recording on the camera, saying like, "All right, do you know any of his crimes?" And she references a friend of hers that talked to immigration or something. And Freddie was like, I want to say Freddie Soto. Isn't there a comedian named? Wasn't there a comedian named Freddie Soto? Is that what I'm getting that from? Maybe I think so. Soto says like, "Oh, no, don't do that again." And said friend like ended up disappearing, and she kind of feels bad because it's like, right, I didn't say anything at the time, I was too scared, because she's like, yo, Soto had me drop off by this particular flower shop, and then like the next day I found out my friend disappeared, so I'm pretty sure he murdered her. But before Maggie's witness got murdered, she took Soto to that very same flower shop. So it's like, cool, that's the place they go to put a pin and so on. Which we do see later on, that guy comes out with the flowers, the one that they're going to try and push on because he has a record and stuff. So I'm assuming, well, they're saying like, right, we're going to get his parole officer to kind of push him in a position where we can use him. So either they're setting something up at the end there, and that's him getting a call to go somewhere, but it's a setup, or that means Soto's already got it lined up for a new target. Because I guess the flowers are supposed to be like, oh, delivering those and you go kill the person. Like maybe that's the whole thing, but he seems like their hitter. So that's definitely going to be interesting to see. Obviously, Maggie and Lankford are spending a little bit more time together. Once again, wanting to know, like, right, what did you would like consider you're a prosecutor? He's a defense attorney, the type of people he potentially represents. What'd you guys even talk about at dinner? She's like, yeah, well, things weren't that simple. Plus, he is my ex. And Lankford talks about his ex situation. It's like, right, this type of job, it's like, we were basically speaking two different languages. She was talking about her day and then asking me about my day. And it's just kind of like, yeah, it didn't work out well, essentially. But he's also the one that gave Maggie the heads up about Griggs. That Griggs was like, asked, because he had talked to Mickey early in the episode, and he was like, yo, do you know what that money was about? And Mickey's like, might have been on a boat. And Griggs like, there's no fucking boat. Are you hiding something from me, Hauler? And Mickey can't say anything because he wants to keep everything. Because the moment Griggs gets involved, the moment he's going to shut this all down, then this is going to lead to like a mistrial. Then, Sergei's going to come after him and his family, so he's trying to play this all very close to the vest. You know, once again, the only other person who's in the full know about everything is Cisco. Well, even then, Cisco's still doesn't know everything, so. I talked about it earlier, but I should also tag in the aspect with the whole Teddy thing. Even Teddy was like, oh, you already owe me a favor because of the whole Cisco thing, so it is what I thought it was. Teddy's like, oh, you're kind of perpetually forever in our debt to some extent because I let Cisco go without much push. And so even him asking like, oh, tell Cisco I said hi. It's like a reminder of like, right. Like either he kind of betrayed them and it's like, oh, we're always going to be kind of like having an eye on you. And the only reason keeping us at bay is Mickey, because we made a deal with him, because he continues to work for us, he does, lawyer stuff for us, and in turn, you get to just kind of walk away from all of this, so. But he also made it clear to Mickey, it's like, cool, you already kind of owe us because of the Cisco thing, but if you want to keep owing us favors, that's kind of a nasty situation to be in, because then it's like the more and more favors you add up, that I'm not the type of person you want to have a whole bunch of favors you need held up by, but okay, I've got your back for now. So it's like, once again, it's like the price you pay just to kind of, get protection for his family. Once again, whether or not they had any correlation or any connection to that letter getting sent to the judge about Juror 7, we'll see. I talked about it earlier about even getting the main detective, kind of like getting him caught up on the whole like tunnel vision thing, and I brought up the whole, could Juror potentially have been someone who might have tried to go after Jan. Really quickly, just kind of elaborating on that a little bit more. I do love how Mickey approached that, because the whole point was Golance was trying to run out the clock, because then like court would be adjourned for that day, and whatever was said on the stand would be the last thing. So he tried to squeeze in like, okay, I got 2 quick questions, let me ask them, and it snowballed and left the jury with the whole thought of, oh, maybe there was someone else, that maybe this wasn't even about Lisa, maybe this was about Jan, and maybe, Trevor had no motive to go after Jan specifically, so kind of setting that up and making that the last thing that the jury hears, so kind of swerving things in his favor, even though Golance was kind of putting him against the wire, being like, I went on, and now you have to wait till tomorrow to cross-examine him, but the jury's already kind of had that rummaging through their mind the entire time, so he's able to shift their thinking before they left home, so it sways things a little closer to their side of the table. So I thought that was such an interesting and elegant way of like how that was handled. So I'm very, very excited to ultimately see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.